You're listening to The Bounding Box, where we talk about web development, geo development, and everything in between. All right, welcome to The Bounding Box. Today I got a great guest here. I got Kelly Hutchins. So Kelly, please introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, what you do, what's your problem.
My name's Kelly Hutchins. I am a software developer on the Instant Apps team. I've been at Esri for 23 years now, I think.
Oh, nice.
So that's a while. Yeah, yeah. Um, and what's my problem? I have too many dogs, too many ideas for apps to build, not enough time. Probably same problems we all have.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? I mean, ideas for apps all the time. Always got an idea for something. It's just trying to find time to squeeze it in to get at least a prototype out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, for people that aren't familiar, give us an idea what instant apps are and why they're important for users out there.
Sure. They're a collection of web applications that make it easy for you to quickly share content from ArcGIS Online. The apps range from kind of all-purpose apps where you can take a map, you can turn on a legend, some sharing tools, measure widget, a bunch of other things from the API, share that as a web application, to focused apps. So maybe you have an app and you want to, or maybe you need to create an app to notify the public about something happening, a zoning change or some other issue in your community. Well, you can use the new public notification app to turn on a few options, point it to your data, and share the app all within just a few minutes, which is why we call them instant apps. It's kind of the idea of you just add water, right? You just add your data, click a few buttons, and you're ready. You have an application that you can share with the public.
And that's the thing. They have, I guess, like two parts to them for users that are getting into it. Is you have the configuration part, which is actually very nice. The configuration from a lot of the instant apps I've played with before, they're not like overwhelming to you because, like you said, they're focus apps, not very overwhelming and stuff. And then the actual output of it, right? So, I mean, are those the two parts that you guys have to work on to make sure everything works in sync and stuff?
Yeah, for sure. So we do work on the configuration experience. We work with our product engineers and the designers to ensure that we sort of make it as easy as possible for you to get up and running. We don't want it to take an hour for you to build one of these applications, right? So we kind of have two modes in the configuration experience. One is the express mode where we just pick the settings that we think are crucial to get the app up and running. So literally, it should just take you 5 minutes or so. And then you can go into the more advanced, turn off the express mode, and you have access to a deeper set of settings where you can maybe add some more configuration. But in both cases, again, we try and keep it as simple as possible and have some nice defaults so you don't have to do a lot of work configuring the app. And then, yeah, the second part is the series of web applications, which we also build. So we have the web apps, the configuration experience, and then all the pieces that make those two things work together. And that's the product of Instant Apps.
And most of that is driven by a web map, right? It's not like you'd go to create an instant app and you start adding layers and stuff. You use the web map to do everything you want to do, correct?
Correct. For the most part, the web maps are driven, or the instant apps are driven by web maps, or on the 3D side, a web scene, or we have a few that also work with a group of content. So if you have a group that has web maps and web scenes, you can use those to share them in a gallery app. We do have the Atlas Instant app that can be driven by layers, but for the most part, they're all driven by pre-existing content from ArcGIS Online.
Nice. That's I've talked a lot about web maps and stuff on this podcast before with different folks about how it's pretty much the key to driving the platform, right? I mean, you go in there, dump a bunch of layers in your map, you have an option of base maps, you do some visualization, and bam, you're pretty much done. Now you can use that everywhere. You bring it into the instant apps, bring it into your custom apps, bring it into Pro, and do all kinds of fun stuff.
Exactly. And it saves you so much time. Like the thought of using JavaScript to write like a unique value renderer just makes me want to cry. When you can just go into the ArcGIS Online Map Viewer, click some buttons, get your render, save it in the web map, and then that cool renderer shows up everywhere.
Now, there are parts of instant apps that are available on GitHub for users, right? If they want to check that out their own.
Yeah, so we have really talented developers on our team, and they got really excited about the concept of web components and how we could use them in instant apps. So instant apps are a collection of over 15 different apps, but some of them have shared functionality. So we started building this shared functionality. For example, like measuring, people wanted a measure tool, so we built a measure tool as a component, a share dialogue as a component. This thing called the interactive legend, we built it as a component. And those are all in a GitHub repo called Instant App Components. And it's available for you developers to access. It's available through NPM, so you can NPM install those and just start using those components in your own applications. And we'd love it if people did and gave us feedback on what works for them and what doesn't.
I know the interactive legend was really popular when it came out. Like, people were like, wow, this is really cool. Because it really did a lot of what users wanted out of the legend, which is a complicated tool to begin with.
Yeah. I mean, it's really cool to take your legend and make it something that people can click on and filter the map based on the legend categories. So I think it's really interesting and powerful, and it's available now as a component so people can add it to their own applications too.
That's neat. And then the share one I know is really cool because we've used those sometimes in like Dev Summit demo apps and stuff so that people can share their particular demo or whatever they're doing. But basically, it provides a share button that will save URL parameters and stuff, right? That you can then share
Yes.
out to people and then consume it and read back the data and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the app has to know how to read in those URL parameters like extent and selected feature, but the share component does, you know, does let you share a link that has those URL parameters available on it. It also has an option to include social media icons and an embed experience. So if you want people to be able to generate that iframe logic to embed into a different web page, they can use the share component to get that.
That's neat. I think that's really powerful. I've seen a lot of users try and like manually create those, and a lot of times I'll just direct them to that particular component because I know it does everything they need it to do.
Yeah, I think the components are really cool. We're building more. We are currently working on one that lets people do some language switching. So if you need to build an app that's, English and French, we're adding a component that lets you switch those languages and retranslate the interface. And there's a bunch of stuff out there. You should check it out if you're a dev.
I saw someone recently have one where they were using the locales and to be able to switch at runtime, and like the JavaScript API, all the widget stuff can handle various locales, but then they had parts of their app that weren't driven by the JavaScript API, and in their case, they just used a Google Translate API to handle all that for them, which I guess it does the job probably for most things, but there's nuances and stuff, and the translation is probably not catching. But either way, it's still a nice trick to do something like that when you have to, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So I want to ask you too. You've been, like I said, you've been at Esri for 23 years. All right, you come up in your quarter there, which I'm sure you're gonna get a nice watch or something. That's cool. But I mean, how have you seen tech and stuff change over that time, especially for I guess web development, right?
Yeah, I mean, when I started at Esri, web development wasn't a thing, right? Like I started using Arc Info and AML, sorry. So it was a long time ago, command line stuff. So things have changed, right? We've gone from that to things like Avenue and Arc IMS and uh, Arc Objects and Web ADF. I mean, it seems like every few years something changes, right? Which I think is a good thing. It keeps us learning. If you're in the software development field, I think you have to always be willing to learn something new and never want to get to the point where you say, I know everything, I can stop learning.
Yeah, exactly, right. I mean, especially I know I spent a lot of time with Arc Objects early on, and I was doing like Arc Objects and Flex stuff for web. And there was the early on you were able to use Arc Objects in your own kind of like web services. And then that you couldn't do that anymore. You had to like do everything through your server at some point. which was fun. But then there was map objects too. I don't know if you ever messed with map objects, but map objects is kind of cool because you can build like your own custom. Wasn't really a custom arc map kind of things, but you have a map and some buttons to do some custom things. That was kind of fun.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so much has changed, and there have been so many products, but it's a good thing, right? It gives us a I don't know, an appreciation for the way things are now.
And I
I
think
think.
it's a little heck of a lot easier today because there used to be all this like support for IE6 and all these quirkiness of the browsers and stuff. And I'm not saying that there's not issues between browsers today because we definitely see them, but I think it's much less than what maybe new devs are facing today than it used to be.
Yes, but I do think new devs, like definitely for sure, browser differences were a challenge, not in the not too distant past. But now I think we have our own challenges. There are days where I will spend way too much time messing with node modules to figure out why something's not working or not updating or some package, lock problem. So I think we have our own. There's always going to be problems. It just changes. We have all these new things that help us get our job done, but they also add this extra level of complexity that sometimes can be challenging. At least for me, maybe other people don't struggle with it as much.
I know, and I'm not going to call them out, but I know someone that was working on a project that with them, they were rebuilding their library, internal library they were using for their app every day, but they weren't changing the version number. And they were wondering why their library wasn't updating their app every day because the package lock was there and they didn't change the version number. And I was like, you guys need to bump your at least patch something. You need to bump that number because it's never going to update for you the way that you want it to. So it took a little back and forth to convince them to do it because they didn't think it was really necessary. But yeah, I mean, little things like that, right?
Yeah,
Come up.
they can for sure. Yeah, for sure trip you up. Or even you have a package lock, but you have it set to automatically update. But maybe there's some breaking change and somebody patches your project later and it updates the latest, but the rest of the code isn't. I mean, there's just all these little intricacies or things that can trip you up if you're not aware of them or you just maybe luckily haven't run into them yet.
Yeah, I know I've dealt quite a bit. We have the web components project that we're working on, which is a MonoReaper project, and we run into so many issues with like Yarn and range versions for like the API. Like we need to support like the next version, but we need the range between 427.1 and 428 next, and you can do these range versions in your package listings, but then you have to have Yarn update the lock file for the specific version like every day. It's just such a twist of scripts and actions in our GitHub to do all these different updates for us to make sure we're in sync on a regular basis.
Yeah. So see, would we rather be back supporting IE8 or I don't know.
That's right. I feel like I'm doing way more DevOps style stuff today than I was maybe
Yes.
10 years ago, right? I
Yeah,
don't have
for
to worry
sure.
about all
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Now, you are also a dog lover, right?
Yeah.
I'm a dog lover. I have dogs. I'm not sure if I'm a hardcore dog lover, but my dogs are my best friends. No, they're always around. They're giving me trouble. They're always wanting attention and stuff like that. How many dogs you got?
I have four of my own dogs.
Okay.
So, and then we always have a foster dog.
Oh,
Right
really?
now we have three foster dogs plus one more foster dog coming in a few weeks. So there will be eight dogs in my house.
That's neat. So when you bring in a foster dog, is it just are they coming from like a shelter or is it like a transition to a shelter type situation?
Usually they come from shelters. We take a lot of dogs from Central Valley of California, so Bakersfield, Fresno, Tulare area. There's a huge problem with dog overpopulation. Shelters are full. They have to kill dogs for space. So they send us all these sad pictures about these,
Oh,
45 dogs are going to be dead tomorrow if someone doesn't take them. And they send those to the rescue that I volunteer for, and then the rescue asks us if we can take the dogs, and somehow we've committed to having four, which is more foster than I've ever had
Wow,
for
okay.
fosters. So
That's a lot of dog food.
it's a lot of dog food and a lot of, I mean, my house is small. My house is a little old bungalow, 800 square feet,
Uh-huh.
and to have 8 dogs, you kind of have to walk with your feet shuffling or you're going to step on someone.
That's a lot of dog hair too. I mean, just
A lot of dog hair.
I've only got the two that are mine. One little one and one. I have a cane corso, and she's a puppy. She's like 9 months now, but
Whoa, but that's a big dog.
she's a big dog, and she sheds so much, and she wants to be held a lot. So she has her crate, and she'll come out and run around and stuff, but she wants to be held, and when she gets off me, I'm just full of hair, and I am like, my gosh, what did you do to me? I have to go out. Like,
Yeah. I mean, we foster mostly herding dogs and Siberian Huskies. So the Huskies add all the hair
oh
and
yeah.
and the energy. So
Oh, the Huskies are so hyper. We've got my daughter has a husky, and it is a very hyper dog and very hairy dog. And we try to brush her out and stuff like that too, and she does not like to be brushed, but she likes to
oh
be
yeah,
hugged,
it's a
but not
challenge.
brushed. So would you say that all devs would benefit from having a dog?
Sure, I think everybody would benefit from having a dog. And if you don't have one and you want one, I have fosters. They need homes.
I think it's so much fun. I see a lot of people that have cats too. A lot of devs that have cats. I see them put pictures of their cats on their keyboards and stuff, which is cool. And I guess I probably wouldn't mind having the cat if I didn't have dogs. But just never been much of a cat person. I've always had dogs and mostly bigger dogs. So that's kind of where I go.
I mean, I have cats too. I have one cat of my own and 3 foster cats and a
Really?
rabbit. So yeah.
Oh wow! I had a rabbit when I was a kid. That rabbit was so much fun. I loved feeding him because he was just like, I'd hold the carrot in there and he would just like chomp away at it and it would slowly go in. Oh, I loved
Yeah,
having a
yeah.
rabbit.
Yeah, the rabbit's great. We have a converted garage where the foster cats and the rabbit live, and he bosses the cats around and kind of in charge of the whole bunch.
Oh, that's so cool. That sounds like a lot of fun. That's a lot of
Yeah,
love going around that house.
a lot of love, a lot of money, a lot of vet bills, but it's okay. We don't have kids. That's what we spend all our money on.
Yeah, the vet bills are something else too. That's another thing.
Yeah, I try not to think about it.
Yeah. We with the cane corso and stuff like that, we've just some of the treatment and stuff like she's had to get. I'm like, are you kidding me, really? But okay, I guess. It's what you do.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Awesome, Kai. Well, I want to be appreciative of your time here. But before I let you go, I do want to ask if you have any tips, tricks, anything for listeners at all. Not even dev related if you don't want. Whatever you guys say.
I guess adopt a dog, please. There's a crisis right now, and animal shelters are overfull, and really, dogs are great. They'll add a lot of enrichment to your life. Um, and then I guess like from a dev side, the thing that's always kind of helped me in my careers, I started at Esri support. And ever since then, when I run into a problem in my app, I don't assume first that it's a bug. I assume first that I did something wrong. And I think I learned that by helping everybody with their problems as they came into support. So once I assume that it's my problem, I try and break the app down into little tiny pieces to prove to myself that I'm doing it right or wrong. But that mindset of I'm the one who's making a mistake always
Yeah.
helps me try and debug it instead of, oh, that stupid buggy software is the problem. So anyways, that's my only tip is just go into it with the assumption that it's your fault. And if it's not, the work that you do to try and debug it will help you provide a use case to support.
That's a great one. I think a lot of times people will jump very quickly to go, oh, this is broken. Right. Like that's
Right.
the
And
first
maybe it
thought.
is,
Yeah.
but yeah.
It's always possible that it is broken. But break it down first. Take a few steps, take a step back and uh do some different steps to kind of break down the issue you're having and maybe you'll be able to fix it. If not, all right, then so report it somewhere. There's especially with like Esri products like that, there's a bunch of different places avenues you can go. You can go via support. There's Esri community. different avenues that you can use to report all kinds of issues.
Yeah, Esri community is great. On the Instant App team, we're super active on that community, and we love to talk to people there and help them out or get their feedback. So
Oh, that's awesome, Kelly. Well, thank you very much. I'll talk to you next time.
yeah, thanks, Renee.
Thank you for listening to the Bounding Blocks today. Please subscribe for more content.